Welcome, Edexcel GCSE Psychology students, to this explainer. If you're tackling the criminal psychology topic right now, well, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're diving straight into pages 17 to 22 of your revision resource to unpack the biological explanations of criminality. We're going to break down all those complex examples and the supporting evidence you absolutely need to crush your exams. Okay, here's our game plan for today. We're taking a highly structured macro to micro journey through the human body. We're starting big at the brain, and then we're going to zoom all the way down to your microscopic chromosomes. It's a flow designed to really lock these theories and key researchers into your memory. Let's get into it. So, here is the ultimate hook. It's the classic nature versus nurture debate, right? Is criminal behavior entirely learned from our environment, or are some individuals biologically wired to break the rules from the very second they're born? Like, do some people literally possess a criminal personality that's just built into their biology? Well, that is exactly what we're going to explore today. Part 1, the damaged brain. Let's start up at the macro level and see how physical damage can completely derail a person's impulse control. First up, we have the amygdala. Think of this tiny structure deep in your limbic system as your brain's emotional alarm center. Researchers have explicitly linked specific physical issues here, like localized epilepsy or even tumors pressing on the amygdala, to sudden, extreme, and completely uncontrollable outbursts of aggressive behavior. Now moving right to the front of the brain, we find the prefrontal cortex. You can think of this area as your brain's brake pedal for impulsive behavior. It's actually one of the slowest regions of the brain to fully mature, and it plays a massive role in our judgment and moral decision-making. So if this area gets damaged, especially during childhood, a person might literally lose their biological ability to put the brakes on inappropriate or violent impulses. Tragically, real-world cases show us exactly how these biological links play out. Take Charles Whitman, for example, who killed 13 people at Texas University. A post-mortem revealed he actually had a tumor pressing right against his amygdala. On the flip side, look at Dante Page, who committed a brutal murder. Brain scans later showed decreased activity in his ventral prefrontal cortex. His legal team successfully argued that this brain pathology, combined with severe childhood trauma, meant he literally couldn't control his behavior. And you know what? It worked. His death sentence was reduced to life imprisonment. Now for those top-tier synoptic essays, you have to pair these theories with hard evidence. Seriously, feel free to screenshot the table we've put together here. You need to know Rain and colleagues' 1997 study using PET scans on 41 murderers, which proved they had reduced prefrontal cortex activity. Then there's Anderson's study, proving that frontal cortex damage in infancy drastically spikes the risk of adult aggression. And honestly, this one's crucial. Williams found that a staggering 60% of the young prisoners they surveyed had experienced a traumatic brain injury as kids. That's over half. It completely disrupted their natural development of social judgment. But hold on a second. To get those evaluation marks, you have to know the weaknesses of this approach. Brain damage only shows a correlation, right? Not a guaranteed cause. Like, poor parenting with zero stimulation might cause poor brain development and aggressive behavior at the exact same time. Plus, looking at this purely biologically completely ignores social learning theory. As Bandura famously proved with his Bobo doll experiments, aggression can just be imitated from role models. No brain damage required at all. Number 2, the genetics of crime. Let's zoom in a bit further, from large brain organs down to our individual cells, to see how our genetic blueprint might set us up for antisocial behavior. To really grasp genetics today, you need to master the term epigenetics. Think of epigenetics like a giant biological dimmer switch. Your DNA isn't just this fixed, unchangeable destiny. Environmental factors, things like extreme stress, a terrible diet, or a total lack of parental interaction, can actually physically switch specific genes on or off. Honestly, in the future, we might see legal teams arguing that a lack of moral teaching actually altered an offender's gene expression, making them biologically unable to control themselves. Mind-blowing, right? Lately, genetic research has zoned in heavily on one specific culprit hiding inside our DNA, a gene carried on the X chromosome called MAOA. This little gene is responsible for regulating an enzyme that cleans up neurotransmitters in the brain, like serotonin and dopamine. If the MAOA gene is mutated or defective, those intense, mood-altering chemicals just build up in the brain. The result? A person who responds incredibly aggressively to stressful situations. And what's fascinating is that this genetic anomaly perfectly explains the gender divide we see in this specific type of aggression. The MAOA mutation mostly affects males. Why? Well, males only inherit one X chromosome, so if they get the mutated gene, they get the aggressive symptoms.
Females, on the other hand, inherit two X chromosomes. So even if a female gets one mutated MAOA gene, her second healthy X chromosome basically acts as a backup and neutralizes the defect, keeping her completely protected from those symptoms.
We actually have incredible support for this theory from two landmark studies. First, Brunner, back in 1993, did a 24-hour urine analysis on a specific Dutch family known for a long history of extreme male violence. He discovered that all these violent men shared a mutated MAOA gene passed down from their mothers. And then, Cases in 1995 did some groundbreaking lab work where they literally disabled the MAOA gene in mice. Sure enough, the male mice became incredibly aggressive while the females just carried on as normal, exactly like the theory predicts. Part 3, hormones and aggression. Zooming in even closer, let's leave the DNA behind and look at the chemical messengers floating in our blood, specifically the hormone testosterone. A lot of our foundational knowledge here actually comes from animal studies. A researcher named Vomsal noticed something crazy. Female rats developing in the womb right next to their brothers absorbed more testosterone and actually became the most aggressive females in their litter. And Beeman showed an absolutely undeniable cause and effect. He found that castrating male mice completely wiped out their aggression. But crucially, the second he injected them with testosterone again, their aggressive behavior came right back. So, does this apply to humans? Well, yeah. In 1995, Dabbs measured the testosterone and the saliva of 692 male prisoners. And he found that the absolutely highest testosterone levels consistently belonged to inmates who had committed violent and sexual crimes. Dabbs even went on to study 240 university fraternity members and found that the frat houses with higher average testosterone were described by everyone as way more boisterous and macho than the lower testosterone groups. Number 4, the XYY chromosome theory. We are zooming all the way down to our deepest building blocks for this one. So, normally, males have an XY chromosome pairing, but researchers started finding that some institutionalized men actually possessed an extra Y chromosome. This creates what's called a 47XYY complement. You can see it there at the bottom right. Seeing this led researchers to a pretty bold hypothesis. Could this biological extra maleness actually be a direct cause of criminal aggression? Studies in Secure Hospitals by Casey and Nielsen, and later by Price and Watmore in 1967, uncovered that these XYY individuals share some incredibly specific traits. They're usually very tall, they generally have lower intelligence, and they often show abnormal brain activity. But the biggest red flags for criminal psychology, they tend to get convicted at a much earlier age, they commit property crimes without any clear motive, and most importantly, they show little to literally no remorse for what they've done. And finally, Part 5, exam application. Now remember, your specification says you only really need to know one of these biological theories in detail as an alternative to personality theory. But being able to pull from several of them, that is what takes an essay from good to outstanding. Let's put this into practice. Take a look at this excerpt from examination question 5. Meet Abby. She's been arrested for smashing a window and stealing clothes. She tells the police the shop charges too much, so they brought it on themselves. She shows zero remorse, says she literally doesn't care about the laws, and then just laughs in the face of the police officer charging her. So the exam wants you to pick one biological theory to explain Abby's behavior, and then outline a strength or weakness of that theory. Based on our macro to micro journey today, which one are you going with? A damaged prefrontal cortex, epigenetics, hormones, chromosomes? You've got to think critically here. Think about how a damaged brain might perfectly explain her missing moral breaks and that total lack of remorse. Or, hey, think about this. Because Abby is female, using the MAOA gene or the XYY chromosome theory would actually be a pretty terrible choice for your answer. Pick your strongest, most logical argument, structure your evidence, and evaluate it fairly. But before we wrap up, consider this. If our biology, our brain structures, our hormones, our very chromosomes can completely dictate our impulse control, do people like Abby actually have free will? And if they don't, how can the justice system ever truly hold them responsible? Something to chew on next time you read a crime headline. Keep questioning the evidence, good luck with the revision, and I'll see you in the next explainer.